You know, of all the places, Orca, that you could sleep, why is it that you're sitting right here? I know, I know. What, kitty? This is my thing I stick my phone onto. It's this jerry-rigged, jerry-built thing with duct tape and a gooseneck lamp and a selfie holder and a pen ink sac. The reason that this is here is my iPhone Plus. Oh, kitty, look at you. Right framed perfectly. Come on, stay flaccid. Flaccid. People think that flaccid is how you pronounce flaccid, but flaccid is actually pronounced flaccid. There's two C's together, and the first C is a hard C, which doesn't make sense that it should be hard when you're talking about flaccidity, but it's flaccid. You learn something every day, right, kitty? Anyway, this is here because I needed a piece of rubber to hold tightly the iPhone Plus. So now let me see if I can put it in. The cat might get a little annoyed with all of the rambunctiousness happening here, and I'm going to be showing you a drawing in a second. Kitty, look, that was, is it stuck? Is it in here now? Okay, cat, I know I have to move you. Oh, you, okay, down. I've been drawing this one tree in our courtyard for the longest time, and I think I'm almost done with it. I did two trees, drew two drawings of essentially the one tree. This one here, that has this great bend and where a branch used to be and another branch used to be, and it's just this really neat convergence of color and shade and shape and dark and light and whatever. And what was neat this morning was the light was hitting in such an angle that there were these really bright white sparkly bits of bark, and then there were cast shadows from the other trees in the courtyard, and it was really quite lovely. And it was lasting for all of about a minute, and then it started, the sun moved, well, the earth moved, and the shadows and the highlights went away, or they changed position. So anyway, this was the first drawing I did, and this piece of paper is probably 12 by 18 or so, and it's too big for using this pen. I also discovered maybe doing a drawing half the size would be good for this pen. You see also in this, there's this bank of windows behind these trees, and there's my reflection in the windows. So there's my arm holding up the thing, and anyway, that's me. Recognize me? This is very rough paper as well. This is watercolor paper I'm using, so there was a lot of sort of slight, I don't want to say skipping, but there was, as you can see, areas where the pen was hitting with greater amount of ink than in other areas. When I would make long strokes, there would be spots where the ink would, it's not that the pen was skipping, it was that the ink was not going into the crevices, which is what water paper is all about. You want to have some areas that have that little white show through, and areas where the ink or the paint will pool up and become darker. Anyway, so this is a pen I bought on eBay, and it had in its I bought it for a number of reasons. One was because of the nib. And the nib was a Skyline nib, which belongs in this pen, not in this pen. Made by the same company, but the Skyline, oh, that's not the pen. The Skyline nib, the heck is it? Right here. This Skyline nib was used to replace the nib that was originally in here that was evidently damaged or lost or somehow broken. I guess you wouldn't lose the nib. It was somehow dropped on its point and broke. Or something, I don't know. But this nib made its way into this pen. The other reason I like this pen was it has an engraving on the back, which I've never really seen before. January 4th, 1923. January 4th. What would have happened on January 4th? Well, it's sort of too late for Christmas and too early for the 4th of July. And what did GBJ do that would maybe his birthday? We'll pretend it's his birthday. Or it could be a bar mitzvah present. Pens were often given as a bar mitzvah gift, and there's the punchline to a joke. I don't know what the joke is, but today I've become a fountain pen, says the man in the joke. Instead of today I've become a man, he nervously says fountain pen instead of man. So I rarely like to do a drawing with two pens, but as I was drawing this one and making line after line after line after line next to each other to make areas darker, that to me that just seemed an anemic way of drawing. Why couldn't I just make a big broad line? So if I had this pen with me in my hands or in my pocket, I would have been able to do something like this, where I would just, add just a couple of really broad lines to darken up things without having to, scritch with, the fine nibbed, the fine flexible nib. I'd just be able to, that would take me 3 times as many lines using this pen. So sometimes having two pens with you is handy. Another thing I could have done was just drawn this drawing with a smaller, look at that one, that ink is still wet, on a smaller piece of paper. And I think I would have been more satisfied. If you look at this same area that I drew here, you still get really, really fine lines. And if I wanted to, I could even have made these lines more delicate. Maybe not. But I could have taken the time to, oops, you're not seeing what I'm doing. I could have taken the time to render this more carefully. When I draw things, I forgot that I zoomed in. When I start doing a drawing or think about doing a drawing, God damn it! I keep going off camera here. One of the first things I think about is how big am I going to draw this? Now, sometimes I have a big piece of paper and I can draw as big as I want, and other times I will have a smaller piece of paper and that will determine it. I can't draw something larger than the piece of paper I'm using. But when I have a large piece of paper and a pen that has a fine nib, I need to make that decision. Am I going to draw it big or small? Or am I just going to draw something like this where it's big, but I don't focus on the small bit? So many decisions. This nib, by the way, that I put in this pen, this either had a number 3 nib, which is what this is. There's the number 3. Come on, show 3. Or it could have had a number 4 nib. This pen, I think, has a 4. This does have a 4. But this is also fatter. No, it isn't. It isn't fatter. Well, this has a number 4 nib. And this nib came in this pen, not that it always was in that pen. When you buy pens, really from anyone, unless you find the original person that owned the pen, that bought it from the store in 1923, you can never be sure whether the pen nib that's on it was the original to the pen. There's no way to know that, really. There are many people in the world who have owned the pen subsequent to you having it in your hands, and the nibs could be swapped out or replaced by, a pen repairman in 1933, 10 years after this pen was given to the guy. The guy could have dropped it and a new nib put in. There are some pens that have specific nibs that go in them. They may not be the original nib, but they may be the correct nib. Waterman made a pen that had a little color band at the top, and if it was red, it would have a nib that would say red, which meant a certain kind of nib. Well, Eversharp had a screw-in section and a screw-in point, and you could select the point that would go in it, though any of that series could go in that pen. What am I talking about? What am I babbling about? I don't even remember what I'm babbling about. Anyway, this nib is more correct in this pen than the nib that I bought on eBay. And I had this loose nib in a drawer full of loose nibs, and I had a Skyline pen looking for a nib. So I was essentially able to make 2 correct pens out of the purchase of this pen with that nib from eBay. So now I've sort of increased the value of this one in the realm of pen value dome, and I have made this pen that was missing a nib useful. And it has a nice... No, this is not the pen. God damn it. This one goes up here, I hope. No. Yes. This one goes up here. Yes, this one. This one is the new to me nib, and that is going to be for sale at some point. This one I'm probably going to keep because of this weird place for an engraving, and I don't mind engravings. And I'll tell you something else. It's a secret just between you and me. I don't mind buying pens that have dings in them. If this pen didn't have those 2 little dings right there and there, and there, and there, and right there, it has 5 little dings. 5 little dings. My pen has 5 little dings. Well, maybe 6 or 7. There's a lot more of them that I see now. If it was perfect, is this one perfect? oh my god, look, this one has really cool, that's one of the reasons why I bought this pen maybe, is because it has an engraving up there, which you normally don't see. Normally you put an engraving right there. That's where they want you to put it. But no, this person insisted to have it put there. Now what the heck does this one say? Where's my loop? Tim J. W. Tim J. W? That doesn't make any sense. Does it make any sense? Look at it again. Tim J. Oh, Jetty. Tim Jetty. That's a cool name. No, Jet. Tim Jet. What a cool name that is. I'll show you what it looks like. It has a well, I can't look at the pen and draw with it at the same time, but anyway, it has a damn it. Tim I M, and then the J is sort of extra fancy, but and then the et that I thought was a W is sort of like this, and this crossbar is really, really faint, and then on either end of it, it has these little dubers like that. So this looked like Jetty initially. That looked like the dot of the I, but it's Tim Jet. And what does the J look like? Can you see this? Tim. There's the dubers. Tim. Come on, focus. J. E. Here, this is better. Jet. Tim. That's a weird J. That is a very weird J. I see what it's doing. Jet. Jetty. Tim Jet. The J is doing this. It has this thing that goes way over that way. You have to have the sound effects. Tim Jet. Anyway, this pen, back to the, before I was so rudely interrupted by me, this pen does not have any dings. This has not been dropped on the floor. This has not been dinged. How else would you get a ding? You drop it on the floor, you bite it, something little tiny, the tiniest of meteorites hit it right there. It's funny that, normally you don't see, well, you see lots of bents and dings and stuff on the sides, on the ends, because that's, how they might fall on the ground. But how do you hit that little point? Is it falling and it hits the top of the mountain right there and then continues to fall, or do you use it to call attention at the meeting where you hit your glass and did I just make more dings? No, I didn't. But I mean, how does a ding happen right there? Come on, GB, GBJ. George Bernard Jaw. This belonged to George Bernard Jaw. Or Gladys Belinda Johnson or some other thing. Look at those little dings. They're all in a little row. 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, having a pen that is in mint condition makes me hesitant to take it outside for a walk, because who knows what can happen outside. You know, even putting it in my pocket, I might trip and fall, and it falls out of my pocket and gets a ding in it. So having a pen that is pre-dinged, pre-bent, pre-stained, pre-something, pre-tooth marked. If this had teeth marks on it, I wouldn't have any difficulty putting it in my mouth and chomping down. But sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes you just have to chomp down on a pen. If you don't smoke cigars, you have to chomp down on a pen. See, this one is chomped down on, upon which this has been chomped. Right there. Nice. You know, so having a pen in perfect shape, I'm less likely to want to use it than a pen that has dings or teeth marks or some other cosmetic flaw showing that it had a life once upon a time. So, bring me your tired, your weak, your teeth marked, your dinged, because I have a home for you. See, this has wear on it. Harriet Roth used this pen a lot, and I don't have any problem in having been passed the torch by Harriet to continue to use the pen. Now, what would Harriet may have used it to plant her flower bed. Were she a gardener? Am I being sexist? She could have used it to make her shopping list. I'm continuing to be sexist. Shopping list. Milk. Dozen eggs. Uzi. How do you spell Uzi? Uzi and 15 rounds ammo. Socket wrench. And on the way home, get my pilot's license renewed, and then go buy some perfume. See, works just as well as it did when she was making out her shopping list. Harriet Roth. Lovely pen, Harriet's. Nice nib. I don't think this nib came in this pen, but I was putting nibs in pens, and Harriet may have wanted a different nib in filling out her shopping list, but she has a nice nib now, Harriet does. If you do have a nice pen, if you do have a pen that doesn't have teeth marks on it and doesn't have dings, if you're going to add a ding to it, make sure you're doing it when you're using the pen. If you're writing out a poem or a letter to the editor and you put a ding in it by dropping it on the floor, that's way better than if you're at a ding when you're showing this pen to another pen collector. That's when you don't want to ding it. You know, if you ding it in the line of duty, like people who get a Purple Heart, you know, you get a Purple Heart for a number of reasons. If you are shot by the enemy and you get a Purple Heart, that's a good way to get a Purple Heart. If you get a Purple Heart because you stubbed your toe on your way to the, ball, the officer's ball. I don't know if you actually get a Purple Heart if you stub your toe on the officer's ball, but if you would get a Purple Heart, I think, if you are injured in training. You know, if you accidentally shoot your toe off. Do you? I don't know. Purple Heart owners, recipients, I should say. Anyone can buy a Purple Heart, but those that actually got a Purple Heart, do you have to? Can you get a Purple Heart because of clumsiness on your part, or does it have to be the enemy's clumsiness or ineptitude or no, they're not clumsy if their talent. Is it the enemy's talent and skill that will allow you to get a Purple Heart? Or can you get a Purple Heart by your own ineptitude? In peacetime, we'll say. We'll just make it simple. Can you get a Purple Heart during peacetime? How about that? That's maybe the easier question. So, what am I even talking about here? Dings. Uh-oh, this does have dings. There's right up there. See, I can take this out without shopping now. I can take this with me. Those little tiny dings right up there, they may have been caused by the canine teeth of Tim Jett. I could probably send this to the dental forensic team and they can find Tim Jett's x-rays from his dentist, his long dead dentist, and they can match them up. Yes, this was in fact Tim's teeth. But these marks here belong to Per Gustafsson's teeth. So there you go. Another 28 minutes and 15 seconds of my life and 28 minutes and 24 seconds of your life wasted, perhaps, in watching me. Or not. Who knows? See ya.